Welcome, everyone, to today's community conversation, part of our Stand for Something series here at the YMCA of Metropolitan Detroit. My name is Ariel Wilkerson. I serve as the DEI and Global Engagement Director. We are thrilled to have you join us for this important, engaging discussion advocating for the health of Black men. As a resource for the community, we are not only committed to serving others, but also from learning from others as well. Our mission is to foster a space where diverse voices can come together to share insights, experiences, and ideas that inspire positive change and invoke action among change agents like you. Today is June 19th, also known as Juneteenth, which commemorates the end of slavery in the United States. It holds significant cultural and historical importance for African Americans, symbolizing freedom and liberation. While Juneteenth is primarily a day of celebration and remembrance, a connection to Black men's health lies in its broader implications for societal well-being, equality, and justice. I am honored to be joined today by two men who will lend their lived experiences to our conversation. Please welcome Colin Mays, author, advocate of Black men's health, and servant leader in Metro Detroit, and LaRon Evans, the executive director for the Metro Youth YMCA, whose leadership and dedication has supported many youth across Metro Detroit. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Erica.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure to be here with you all and to have you on for our Stand for Something series. I want to kick things off by asking you each to share a little bit about your background and what lens you bring to this conversation.
I can go first. Again, LaRon Evans, Executive Director for Metro Youth YMCA. I like to lead with I'm a youth advocate at heart. That's what really drove me to this field, even after I graduated college, just to work in youth development. Went to college, went to Central Michigan University, majored in public health, and just started to work with youth directly after college. And that's one thing that I predicate myself and talking to kids about, major in one thing, right? And then sometimes even having more options because a lot of jobs weren't plentiful right after I graduated school. So I started to work in youth development and I instantly became connected. So that's one thing in terms of my lens, being a youth advocate. I'm also a mental health therapist. I have a master's degree in mental health counseling as well to lead in a discussion around anything mental health related for the general population, for Black men in particular, as well. Also, I'm a dad as well, so as a father, not only to my son, he's an honorary achiever by way. He attends some of our events. He's 6 years old, but also a father to my community. I think that's important. It's important to note, even in this discussion, right? As a man, as a Black man in particular, and not even if a child has a father, I think it's important when we talk about the village analogy. That's important to raise our young men and young ladies to be responsible adults and being a mentor or father figure for them as well. So that's a lens that I bring as well. Grew up in a two-parent household from Detroit, Michigan, attended all Detroit public schools. So those are some of my general experiences and a lens that I bring to this discussion.
Thank you.
And I greatly appreciate the opportunity to be here amongst friends, amongst community leaders like yourself, LaRon and Ariel. So thank you so much for the opportunity. For me, it's important to really be able to pay it forward. And how I would define myself is a philanthropist, and not a philanthropist probably in the traditional sense of writing a large check, but a philanthropist in terms of providing support to initiatives, to activities, to people. You know, there's a statistical information out there that shows that Black Americans are the most philanthropic in the entire country. And it's a fact that is not shared often. But it's true. And when you think of philanthropy, you're not just thinking of, again, writing that large check, but you're thinking of the time that you're investing into the community, the time that you're pouring into others. And that's really what I believe in, and especially being able to pour into the lives of young folks. So I'm just so happy and grateful to be here and to be able to share a bit of my story and my journey. And My background, having worked in nonprofits and working in government and being an entrepreneur right now. So I've kind of done it all. And just being able to inspire others along their path and along this journey of life.
Well, with today being Juneteenth, we want to make sure that we are uplifting emancipation, commemoration, and education. When you think of what this day means to you, how do you define freedom?
Alan, you want to go first?
Absolutely. Freedom to me means creativity, being able to create something that is yours, being able to think outside the box, being able to come up with new ideas. I think those that are the most, if you want to call it successful in some of the areas that they're pursuing, are those that aren't afraid to take risks and not afraid to really step outside of the bounds of what is considered normalcy. So certainly encouraging everyone, especially young folks that are listening to this, to really be creative and go out there and follow your dreams and be persistent for sure.
To me, I just want to echo what Colin mentioned, very well said. To me, I definitely want to start with freedom of choice, having options that are plentiful and equitable. And that's one thing that I love about the YMCA and as well as our Achievers program through Metro Youth YMCA, being able to, as Colin mentioned, in terms of philanthropy and being able to connect with community partners to provide, or donors as well, to provide these opportunities to resources that our kids may not normally get a chance to have, whether it's related to going on college tours or whether it's related to funding for school or things like that, just making sure that the playing field is as equal as possible. Culturally, community-wise, just in general, when we talk about equality, that's important, as well as you mentioned, just this, what we're doing as well, stand for something. Just even knowing, what previous ancestors fought for in terms of our freedom, why it's important, teaching youth about the importance and significance about Juneteenth, and what we fought for to get to today, and how do we move forward, not just looking back, but also how do we move forward as a whole.
Most definitely. I agree with you 100%, Lauren. And, some people will probably ask, okay, why are we talking about Black men's health with Juneteenth? Well, for true liberation to exist, we have to fully liberate all people. And part of that is ensuring that each individual, as they identify, has access and equitable access to resources. And health equity is huge, especially when we're talking about the Black community. So what is important for our audience to understand and know about Black men's health, both on the physical and mental side? And Colin, we'll talk a little bit about your advocacy in this realm here too.
So I'll start out. For me, mental and physical health go hand in hand. My approach to therapy is person-centered, also holistic in nature, right? That means that how we think, how we feel is how we act, and so forth, right? So it's important not only for my clients, but even as I communicate with youth and my team, it's important just to be 100%. Even though we don't always show up 100%, what does that mean? Knowing that you may be empty. How do you get filled? How do you get filled up? Whether that's through mental health, whether that's through talking to a therapist, whether that's through taking walks, but just by any means, just making sure that we are in control of our mental as well as physical health, because they go hand in hand. Because if you're not well mentally, then a lot of times you're not well emotionally or physically, right? So it is a coupled effect that has an effect on all of us, especially in our day-to-day work. How do we relate to others? How do we respond to certain situations and our emotions and identifying them and having a heightened level of self-awareness? Also negative coping, right? So if you're negative coping, you may be using substances or things of that nature, which impedes on your physical health as well. Or you may be eating too much or not enough. So it's all goes hand in hand when we think about physical as well as mental health, because they all play a significant role in who we are and what we do and what we mean to others. So Again, as a therapist, again, my approach is holistic and just making sure, asking questions in terms of, your sleeping pattern, not just in terms of how you're feeling internally or mentally. All those things are important as we look to the lens of just mental health and how it's coupled with our physical health as well.
And I absolutely love what Laurent said. I echo that. And, we're in alignment today, especially. So a lot of synergy here. I think that when you're thinking about mental health, you can't talk about mental health without physical health, and you can't talk about physical health without mental health. And I'll even throw in one other, and that's financial health. Because when you are aligned um, health wise and all of three aspects, you're going to thrive and you're going to live a more productive and prosperous life. So when I think of the word physical health, of course, I think about going out there, getting active. I think it's recommended by the American Heart Association a minimum of 150 hours a week of cardiovascular activity. So that certainly should be a benchmark. And I'd say even do a bit more if we're able to do it. It's tough when you're a working professional. It's tough when you have a lot of different obligations, but it's important that we are being as proactive physically as we can be. I would say also from a mental standpoint, making sure that we have regular check-ins with those that we care about. Regular check-ins in terms of um, interacting with family, interacting with friends, going for a walk. Even when the pandemic was taking place, I would still regularly connect with those that I cared about through Zoom. So just being able to have an outlet to discuss some of the challenges that we might face in life is important. And also being able to show up every day and give 110%. Now, some days will look different than others in terms of capacity. We could often have a challenge on Tuesdays that maybe we don't face on Friday. So every day will be a little bit different, but waking up and showing up and never giving up is going to be the best recipe for success. Recently wrote a book on men's health, men's and boys' health, and I really chronicled my journey of having lost 200 pounds and reshaping the framework around how I viewed food, which was an addiction for me. I know, there are a lot of different addictions that can occur in life, but for me, it was food. And, I still enjoy a good piece of carrot cake here and there, but certainly learn the importance of moderation and the importance of really just treasuring my body and treasuring my mindset as well.
Colin, you mentioned your book where you share your health journey. In the book, you state it's not about weight, but rather discipline, motivation, and perseverance in stewarding a healthier life. For those who haven't gotten a copy of your book yet, but may venture to read it after today's conversation, how can they apply those three principles of discipline, motivation, and perseverance as they start their own health journey? And what helped you maintain discipline to stay motivated and persevere?
That's a great question. It's a challenging one because um, I think, as I mentioned earlier, what you might find motivating on a Monday, you may not find motivating on a Wednesday or Thursday. So that's really where the discipline comes in. And discipline for me means doing something that maybe I don't necessarily want to do every day, but something that I know I have to do if I'm going to reach my goal. So whether that is health or whether that is working on your career or whether that is doing something that is school, for example, staying in school. It takes a lot of discipline to be able to get through high school, get through college and beyond. It takes a lot of discipline to go and learn a new trade. There are a lot of opportunities now in skilled trades, but it all takes discipline. And I think for me, applying the discipline from a health lens really allowed me the opportunity to flourish in other areas too. So in terms of staying disciplined, it's a matter of just waking up knowing that, you know what, I have to do something. Even if I'm not 110% today, if I can't give it my all, I'm going to give something to make sure that I stay in a groove and you become consistent. So when you think about it, you eat every day, you got to sleep every day, and we should be doing something physically active every day.
Thank you for sharing that, Colin. Before we move forward, I just want to note, just in general, in terms of our viewers and broader community when we talk about mental health, also having an action plan of resources. So if you are a person, or if you know of a friend or colleague or anything like that, in need of mental health services, I use a tool called Psychology Today. So www.psychologytoday is like the Facebook of mental health therapists, because another thing in our community is the general connection in terms of therapists, because it's kind of like going to a store and trying on a shirt and not liking it. You may not go to that store again when it comes to mental health. But just making therapy less taboo, especially in the Black community, because it was taught, at least growing up, like, you pray about it, you don't talk about the family business, and now it's being more and more common. You have other tools like BetterHelp, things like that if you want something virtual. But I definitely highly recommend, if you're a person who is seeking therapy, to utilize that tool, Psychology Today, if you're seeking a therapist. And sometimes our mood changes. Sometimes we may not feel, you don't have to be at your lowest point to seek therapy, right? Sometimes we want to seek that as guidance. If you need assistance with, as Colin mentioned, financially, talk about that, or talk about next chapters, as we age, just talking about things like that, or grief. There's a lot of different things in mental health. It's not just saying that, hey, I have schizophrenia or this severe disorder. Sometimes we just need a person that can give us sound advice that we can listen to, that we can talk to. And that's my view of why mental health is so important. That's why I'm an advocate of mental health, because sometimes we view it as such as you have a severe disorder, when in most cases, most of my clients are common people who just want a safe place. And that's the opportunity that we're trying to create. We're trying to create that in our households. We're trying to create that in our schools. But where is it at for us one-on-one when we need that safe place? So I encourage everyone to look into those resources if you need such.
Thank you for uplifting that, LaRon. I'll share with you for my own mental health. One of the things that I look forward to doing in my month is being able to go to the hair salon, because that's where I get the support, right? So there are women of all ages there that can provide me sage advice, and maybe uplift my spirits, provide me some laughter for the day. And then there's a boost of confidence when I'm getting ready to leave. I'm walking a little bit taller because now I look good, right? So where are you seeking support? And how are you also reaching back to help someone else to ensure that they're getting the support and care that they need?
I would say for me, and you mentioned, I smiled instantly when you said salon, because it's an inside joke. I go to the barbershop weekly. I go every week, once a week, and it's really tied to my self-care. The barber that I have, he's been cutting my hair since high school. So shout out to Generations Barbershop in Redford, by the way. But again, just past the actual barbershop, just having that shared connection or that establishment. And he's grown not to just be a barber, but a friend as well. So we're able to talk about family and marriage and man stuff, things like that, sports. And just to be able to sit down for an hour, it's very therapeutic. And not only the one-on-one discussion that you have with your general barber or stylist, but just the community that comes in a shop as well. And so it's about building community. Again, that's whether it's at a salon or a barber shop. I'm also in a fraternity, Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated. We have meetups. We also work with youth, as you mentioned, in terms of how do you give back. I support our undergraduate chapter, Ada Row chapter for Central Michigan University, still mentor them, because it's important as young men, because these young men become fathers, they become husbands, and it's important to give back to them, even when they're in that developmental stage or even in high schools. Kyle, I don't know if you want to talk about your experience at Western Michigan University, and we'll talk about boys and young men of color, just how mentorship is important as well. Throughout the course of at least 15 years, I have at least, I can't countless number of mentees. And the thing about mentorship, when I'm talking about boys and young men of color, sometimes we think that we're always the mentor, but sometimes we're the mentee as well, because a lot of our youth, I learn from them through their experience and their lens. So it goes both ways. So it's important to give back, because even giving back, you're giving something within as well. So that's something that I appreciate in terms of building community, again, whether it's at the barbershop, with my fraternity, with my friends, with my family as well, being able to talk to them and see them as a support system. because it's important, even when we work with young people, just the general need that our young people have in terms of having a caring adult that's essential in youth development. So we want to make sure that we provide those opportunities for our youth as well.
I think it's that
Yes,
proverb that says it takes a village to raise a
Yes.
child. So yeah, I support that 100%.
and I want to thank LaRon for stating all of those details and facts, and I couldn't agree more. I think that when I talk to young people today, and I'm classifying young people as 18 or younger. But when I talk to high schoolers and middle schoolers, the biggest challenge that I hear from them is finding a safe space. So many want to open up and talk about what they're experiencing, talk about the challenges that they have, but they don't have a safe space to do so. Uh, and for me, similar to what LaRon said, I think it boils down to having a good mentor, somebody that believes in you. If you don't have a big brother, or if you don't have someone that's maybe a male in your life that can provide some support, it's important to lean on organizations such as the YMCA, and other organizations in your specific area that can help you find a mentor, because that mentor can help you with emotional, can help you with other type of support that you may need, help you maybe find a job when you graduate or you go on to a trade. So there's so many benefits to having mentors. I don't think any successful person, however you view success, would say that they got there by themselves. They had to have support from outstanding mentors in order to make it happen. And we really want to ensure that we're being a beacon of hope for the young men that are part of our coalition, our group, our family here.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, Colin, last month you talked about having a group, a coalition of people. Last spring, rather, you held a health symposium called Brother Let's Talk. Let's Talk Health. And it focused on preventative health for men. Why is the health of Black men in particular important to you?
Well, it's near and dear to my heart because, again, given my own health challenges, losing 200 pounds, significant amount of weight, and reshaping my mindset around food and food equity, really. When you look at a lot of communities of color, we don't necessarily have the best grocery stores. We don't necessarily have the best access to food. And so much of the conversation is always, well, you need to go to the doctor, you need to go to the doctor, but we don't know what to look for. We don't know what to find out. Like, how should we prepare ourselves to go to the doctor? It's not a matter of we just don't want to go. It's a matter of, okay, I go, I get the information. Now, how do I ensure that I'm able to properly eat? I'm able to properly exercise. So the conversation was twofold. It was ensuring that, number one, we're doing the proper screenings, we are going to the doctor, but number two, we're understanding the food equity of this, and we're understanding the importance of being able to have access to good quality food, not always eating fast food, but having access to fruits and vegetables, and making sure that we're able to, again, be physically fit to the best of our ability. Black men are at greater risk of dying prematurely from strokes, heart attacks, and not all of that is because we just don't want to eat properly. A lot of that is because we don't have access to the good quality food that we need to have.
I think that's historical though too, right? Can you talk to
Absolutely.
that?
Absolutely, it's historical. It kind of goes back to again the overall equity system, and how Black Americans are not likely to have the same amount of equity as others. So it's important that we do what we can to educate ourselves, and that we find out ways that we can get access to hopefully better food, and eat real food. As I mentioned earlier, fast food is all around us, but being able to grab an apple or an orange, or being able to put in good vegetables into our body, that's really how we're going to heal a lot of the illnesses that might exist for us. It's not an easy thing to do, but hopefully with more education around this subject, more healthy grocery store options that are going to be provided around various communities, then we should be able to really address some of the health challenges that we have. And again, really getting active with organizations like the American Heart Association, other organizations, stroke associations, to ensure that we're getting as much information that we possibly can.
Yeah.
Erin, mind if I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
I just had a follow-up question. So again, thank you for being transparent about your journey, Kyle, as well as sharing information about your book through your experience with men's health. So you mentioned losing a nice amount of weight. What was your regimen? Was it, you said you had a battle with food? Was it that you had to change your mindset, or what was your regimen of realizing like, A, I have to make this change, and B, what did you do to stay consistent through that journey?
So the biggest thing just boiled down to, I wanted to make sure that I was giving myself 110% shot at living a longer life expectancy than what the average life expectancy is for Black men, which is around 62 years old, which is horrible. That's not even retirement age. So I wanted to ensure that I gave myself the best opportunity to live a long life. And I knew I couldn't do that if I was 400 plus pounds. I don't know many folks that are 400 plus pounds and healthy. So I knew I had to change, but I had to change my thinking around food. I went from, I gotta eat the best food all the time, to I gotta eat the best food for me all the
Mm,
time. It went from, I want to get a Whopper with cheese to, I want to have grilled chicken, vegetables. Water was big for me as well. I can't emphasize that enough. We need to be drinking water. We need to be drinking a lot of water. That will eliminate a lot of health challenges on its own because of the impact of water.
Yeah, thank you, Laurent, for asking that question. I want to go back just a little bit to what you said about health equity and then access to healthy food, right? That's a challenge. So there's a workshop that several of our staff have done here at the YMCA, where you walk through a foot ID, and this ID is looking at neighborhoods where the populace is more people of color, right? So what the neighborhood looks like, and there aren't a lot of major grocery stores in communities of color, right? So there are more fast food restaurants, corner stores where people are accessing or trying to access food and for sustenance for their families. So how do we as a community come together to change that? How do we change that to ensure that people are receiving the proper things that they need to survive, right? That if you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, nourishment, food,
mm,
sustenance, that is one of the main needs, that people need, things that people need.
yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Laurent. You want to touch
Well,
on
I'm
that?
saying that's very well said, Ariel, to pose that question just in general. It's neat, and that kind of goes back to what we talk about mental and physical health, right? Because physically we do need nourishment, right? And that affects us physically as well as mentally. But what do we do when we don't have that access in our community, right? We're a grocery store. If you don't have transportation, and your nearest grocery store is 2 miles away, what do you do in that case, right? So that's unfortunate in most situations in the Detroit and most urban communities at large. And I think I don't have a direct answer for that today. I know one thing in terms of my department through Metro Youth YMCA, we're also merged with Healthy Living, and a part of the YMCA, we want to make sure that we're teaching not only our youth but parents around nutrition as well. So we do something that's called Snacktivity, and we take that into our schools where we show kids how to make healthy snacks at home. Because, you know, if you have some sort of different things to do where there's, you know, what do they call it? A log, I forget the actual name of it, but just celery and peanut butter, you know, things like that. Or just a smoothie, you know, that's something that can be healthy. Do you always have to have, you know, Kool-Aid or, you know, things that are high fructose, you know, and concentrated drinks and things like that of such. And just talking about the nutritional value of getting fruits and vegetables, you can put some vegetables and it can still be good as well. And a lot of kids don't know because sometimes we perceive vegetables as something that doesn't taste good. But again, it can be good as well. And making it taste good, being exposed to it little by little as well. I think that's important as well for our youth, as well as our parents to know nutritional facts as well. Partnering with like gleaners in terms of having parent workshops around how to pick out certain foods and things like that, because sometimes it's financially related. Because even me staying downtown, you know, Whole Foods may not be in the budget, you know, it may be the closest, right? And sometimes you kind of got to look at that. And you may need to, in my case, drive a little further. But again, I think about those families who don't have transportation or have that a barrier in terms of the access in our community. So what do we do as a people to make sure that we remove those barriers as much as possible? Whether that's through partnering with their like local churches or things like that, and just taking that information as well. But I think in terms of my part right now is making sure that our excuse me, our youth as well as our families have access to understanding nutritional facts and making sure that they know at least the nutritional value as such in terms of what they can have. I think ongoing, we need to figure out different ways to make sure that food and not food in general, but nutrition is of high quality in those areas that need it.
Absolutely agree. And you know, I think the thing that we can do as a community to really help cultivate access to quality food is kind of neighborhood food drives. You know, having people in the community come together to purchase goods and to be able to pass them out to everyone, to be able to host neighborhood health equity events, you know, block by block, and talk about the importance of drinking water, talk about the importance of eating your fruits and vegetables, and really just again the importance of overall health pertaining to food and food equality, food equity. And it's not something that we can do overnight, but hopefully with the right tools, and hopefully my book is one of those right tools, people will have the ability to really reshape their lives around food and health.
LaRon, you mentioned giving back to youth and making sure that they are learning new tools to build better habits and build healthier habits, not only for them, but for their families. And you, through the Metro Youth YMCA, you work with the Boys and Young Men of Color strategy from the YMCA of the USA. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, definitely. So thank you to YUSA and provide an opportunity through the Boys and Young Men of Color initiative to make sure that males had access and opportunity towards mentorship. Shout out again to Mike DeVol for leading the charge, Devin, and so many influential people, you know, just a name that's a part of that strategy from YUSA. So we have different healing calls, and it's a strategy not just for individual branches or individual states or cities. It's a global initiative. That at least that's the strategy which we're trying to get to. Right now is based on certain states and cities and branches of YMCA's. But the overall strategy and approach is just ensuring equitable outcomes, primarily for boys and young men of color, ages 11 through 17, just making sure that they have, we're able to remove system barriers. We are also able to provide the relevant resources for them and create nurturing environments, pretty much what we're talking about. That's exactly what we want to do in terms of that actual strategy. Some of the pillars that coincide with the strategy as well as around education, college and career readiness, character development, belonging in community, as well as health and well-being, which attributes to this discussion as well. We want to make sure that we hit on all those points and make sure that our youth, our young males in particular, have equitable access, because as Colin mentioned, some of the mental and physical health, things like that, that we experience, that's not something that happens as an adult. And if we're able to capture some of these things as young as 11 or even younger than that, then we'll have more well-rounded, individuals and young men, and people as a whole, pertaining to the community. And again, a part of that strategy and how it came about in terms of why is there a need of having a strategy around boys and young men of color, because historically there is 2 times the amount of poverty in Black culture, right, in terms of our neighborhoods. And that affects education, right, in terms of a lot of schools are closing, things like that. There's a high truancy rate around Black males. There's a high juvenile rate around young Black males. So we don't want to just talk about what the statistics are. We want to remove those barriers and not just stick with what is, but what can be as well. And the best way to remove those barriers is to address them as early on as possible, which the Boys and Young Men of Color initiative and its strategy is doing. So I'm proud to be a part of it, be a part of the charge as well. We have a great group of people that support the initiative. Even our CEO, Parrish Underwood, he's a part of the steering committee. I have a great team that supports this initiative. And we have a great group of young men who want to be a part of this initiative because they are part of it. We're not necessarily mentoring them. They understand the importance and significance of getting mentored, of getting resources. We talk about networking. We've been to the Black Boys and Men Symposium in Grand Rapids. And when we went, thanks again to the funding we received through Boys and Young Men of Color, even going to that networking event, that was the first opportunity that these young men had to experience a networking event or a symposium. And again, not to assume anybody's situation or circumstance when we talk about equitable resources, I was able to provide suits for every young man a part of that program. So we took 25 boys to Grand Rapids through Grand Valley State University. It was a 3-day event, and it built their confidence, it built their character. They got business cards, they knew how to greet people. And I wasn't surprised because these were things and systems and resources that they came to the workshops. They put forth the effort. And just to see them in their natural space and build those connections, not only with other peers, but with adults around different cities, as well as states. Our youth can thrive in these spaces as long as we create the opportunity for them. So I'm not surprised with the success that I've seen at that symposium. We just need to continue to build on these resources and support for our young men as we continue to grow.
Definitely. And Colin, I know you had an opportunity earlier this month to speak to a group of young people with the YMCA who are involved in Boys and Young Men of Color, as well as our Teen Achievers program. Can you share a little bit about that experience and being able to connect with them?
Yes, and I want to say thank you again to the YMCA for the opportunity to do so. It was very rewarding to me, and being able to see the high schoolers that are ambitious and want to make a difference in the community was rewarding. And I will say this too: it took place at Western International High School there in the southwest side of Detroit, and spoke to the young men for roughly 20 minutes or so. And they shared with me their dreams, their ambitions, their concerns, their worries, and we were able to just have an open conversation around, again, those same topics of discipline, motivation, and really leaning in on those around you. So being my brother's keeper, right? That's an important thing. And I think when I was speaking with them, they really took away the fact that they can be whatever they want to be. And it's just a matter of them putting their minds to it and working to achieve it. There's going to be many bumps in the road. I let them know that. But those that are successful in their endeavors are those that are disciplined and those that persevere.
Yeah.
Thank you again, Colin, for having the opportunity not just to go to the school, but engage with our young men. So that's significant to me as well as my team, and we need more people like you to step up, not only as mentors but as guest speakers and key community partners, because you're a stakeholder in this charge, right? And again, I really appreciate your ability to go in and build that connection with our young men and see what came from that and that experience as well. So again, it can't just be the same people day in and day out. This is a community effort. It's a community charge, as well as a call to action to make sure that we are continue to build this system of equality and equitable resources around our young men, as well as young girls. I know we just talked about boys and young men of color. I'm actually looking for funding, as well as opportunities to make sure our girls have a mentoring program as well. We're looking to do something around STEM with our young ladies, because they need additional resources as well. I know there's a heightened level of resources in terms of the data that supports the need for young men, but there's also a community need and a conscious effort, when we talk about equality, a system change, that our young ladies need support as well. So even with that, we've had support from Skillman Foundation, where we're able to provide mental health services, that I'm able to leverage different guest speakers or opportunities to partner with different organizations. Most recently, one of my key partners, Diamond Jenkins, she had a chance to go in to talk to some young ladies at Hutchinson Howe Middle School, as well as some young men around domestic violence. You know, when we think about mental health and things like that and those behaviors, these are not just things that come about as we are adults. These are things that are embedded in us in terms of learned behavior. How do you de-escalate yourself? How do you know what experience and emotions that you're feeling? How do you communicate with your friend? How you communicate with your friends? How you communicate with your partners? How you communicate with your teacher and things like that. So just having the ability to have certain funding to provide those opportunities as well, for someone to go into the school or for us to have these different groups and workshops, because it's not all around college and career readiness. We're trying to build the whole child. We're trying to impart every different type of resources that they'll need from now until adulthood, and even past adulthood, as they continue to grow, because we're all still growing. We all need continued resources. And it's our responsibility, not only with the YMCA, but it's a community effort as well. So I'm really thankful for different partners, such as yourself, Colin, as well as community support, our foundation support, because it's an ongoing effort. So.
Well, glad to be in partnership.
Thank you.
Colin, you mentioned today the importance behind having financial health as well as your emotional well-being and your physical well-being, that the three need to coincide with one another. You also shared that the young men that you met with talked about their worries, and the things that they are looking forward to, as well as things that, you know, may provide them some anxiety. Sociologist and philosopher W.E.B. Du Bois presented us with the concept of double consciousness. What do you believe is the double consciousness that Black men move through life with? And how can one overcome the duality of their lived experience to move toward and meet liberation?
Ooh, great question. You know, I would say fear of failure and loneliness. I think those are the two things that that Black men and Black boys are dealing with more so than ever before. Feeling fear of failing because I might be the first one to do something. Fear of failing because someone has told me that I can't do it. Fear of failing because I have a lot of different responsibilities and I really can't focus um, on a specific project or a task. Fear of failure because I have a lot of anxiety around the workplace in general or around life in general. And then loneliness because as Black men, we do not talk enough with each other. We do not share enough of our trials and tribulations with one another. You know, Dr. Harold Neighbors, who was a retired PhD at the University of Michigan, has a program called Man Up, Man Down, meaning that typically when you hear the words, "Oh, just man up," that's said from one man to another, basically saying, "Yeah, I'm tired of hearing you complain. I don't know how to solve your problem. We all have problems. Just deal with it." And when someone hears that, it probably knocks the socks out of them in terms of, well, I have this issue that I really want to address, and I wish I had someone that I could talk to about it, but I don't have a comfort level of sharing details because I've been told before that nobody wants to hear me complain. And it's just not healthy. And it's a cycle in which we have to work to break. So whether that is getting a professional therapy, whether that is having a small circle of friends that you can confide in to be able to address some of the challenges that you might face, it's so important that we are being truthful with each other and that we're being vulnerable at times with each other because we do need that level of community.
Well
LaRon,
said,
anything to
Coach.
add?
Yeah, yeah, he said it perfectly. Actually, just hearing what you mentioned, Colin, something that resonated with me when you talked about isolation is also trust as well, rebuilding trust in our community individually as well as each other. And what I mean by that, just historically, um, when we talk about the separation within our culture, when we talk about light skin versus dark skin, things like that, those are things we don't really talk about anymore, from a historic perspective. And just in terms of our community, growing up on a, west side versus east side, things like that, and not trusting each other and building that community because now what I'm saying, all our kids don't just come from one side of town, they come from everywhere. We want to create this safe place, for them. And what that means is accepting all, right? Accepting each other. But how do you do that when it's been stigmatized in terms of not trusting based on, growing up on a certain block, things like that, or if someone stays a mile away or claiming certain neighborhoods, things like that, just removing that stigmatism or what's been taught to us and being more open to trusting amongst fellow peers as well as our community. But it's important to us when we talk about being a responsible adult as well. And as Ariel mentioned, what are we doing to go back and support our youth and our community, things like that. That's important. That's an ongoing effort to rebuild trust in the community, right? Because if you just go in there one time and you're done, like, oh, that was nice, you just brought food one time, that we needed consistently. How do we have that consistent effort to build trust, right? When we talk about mentorship and having an adult, a friendly adult, someone that you can confide in, that it's not just like I can just go into a school or setting, and everybody doesn't have that capacity to do that ongoing. But again, it's an all team, it's an all community effort to make sure that we continue to wrap our services, our resources, and our knowledge around our youth as well as adults, right? Because that's a trust. When you take certain themes and resources and community and you leave abruptly, you're just putting a band-aid on it, right? And that's a trust thing as well. And then something I struggle with personally is imposter syndrome. We don't talk about that enough in terms of feeling, as you mentioned, Colin. I mean, I'm not good enough, or I'm not an expert, or things like that, or self-doubt. These are all emotional things. These are things that we have to deal with internally through a heightened level of self-awareness and through, positive self-talk and knowing that, not thinking, but knowing that we are enough, that we do mean something, that we are important to our communities as well as to ourselves as well as others, and that we don't have to be perfect. We do have to give our best. We do have to see resources and knowledge and support and whatever experiences to become whatever expert in terms of actual field. But when it comes to us personally, I think that's important to overcome that battle, which is ongoing.
This has been a very fruitful and engaging conversation, and there are a lot of things that I'm taking away from our dialogue today, and I would love to continue it and bring more people into the fold to have it alongside of us. So I'm going to make the offer now, and we can plan for it at a later time, but for us to take this conversation on advocating for Black men's health and how to ensure that we are also taking care of Black women as well, to come together and have a cross gender dialogue and talk about intergenerational support for the Black community. So LaRon, let's pinpoint how we can make that happen.
Yeah.
I want to end with two questions here, or maybe just one. We talked a lot about the historical inequities and how they play into social determinants of health and contribute to, Colin pointed it out very well, the different chronic diseases and lower health outcomes for Black men and men of color in general. How can we advocate, support, and organize around the health of Black men as individuals and then as a collective community? We know that true liberation happens when we all have equitable access. So how do we do that in a tangible way? Like leaving this conversation today, someone who is tuned in, they're like, I'm ready to commemorate Juneteenth in a tangible way. What can they go do today as an individual or with their family member or their friends?
I would say spend time. Spend time with those that you care about. Reach out and get to know somebody new. You know, so much of the word community is the ending of it, which is unity. And I think of unity as being able to come together, whether you're of the same background or not. You care about each other because you have same values. The same values, similar values. It's important that you're able to work with those that you admire and love the people that love you back. So spend time this Juneteenth, spend time reaching out to those that you care about, reaching out to somebody new, and practicing that great word of discipline in all that you apply.
Well said, Colin. For me, the YMCA has an initiative that's near and dear to me for our youth called Change Makers. Change Makers is an opportunity for youth in the community to advocate for a need or change that they want to see directly in their school or in their community. So it can be one or the other, multiple different things. So they actually get a chance to write a pitch for it, and they actually, if they're selected, they get a chance to go to Washington, D.C. Historically, every year we have at least two, so they pick two from each state every year to go to Washington, D.C. So we had two of our achievers selected, each year. Some of our achievers come from other different branches or other different communities as well. I'm bringing that up in terms of context because 2 years ago, we had two youth achievers. They went to Cass Technical High School, and they wrote for their change around mental health and financial literacy. Those are two things that we talked about today. And just to have youth see that as a need in their school because they want it embedded into their curriculum. Because it's one thing in schools that we have certain things that need to be taught, but we have other things that have to be taught that we don't get on a normal basis as well. So they saw that as a need in terms of a curriculum around mental health as well as financial literacy. So when Gretchen Whitmore was there, it actually got to her desk and she saw the actual pitch and information about it. So it was actually signed by her and enacted into school. So that's an isolated example of being a change maker. And these are our youth. So my charge, Ariel, as well as Colin, is for us to be change makers. Figure out what the need is, make a plan, make a pitch, and implement it. Now, we talked about mental health today. We talked about the responsibility around physical health. These things are important. Now, I think the next step in terms of these continued discussions is to make sure that we have proper resources and build a community of people who see that they need an investment in terms of what we're, not just what we're trying to do, but what's the need in our community, right? A needs assessment, essentially, right? And then build on that and then grow and then have change makers come together in terms of a community effort and work towards that consistently. That's what I see.
Yeah, I think it's also as simple as today, find a friend and go for a walk and celebrate. Commemorate Juneteenth by learning about our history, right? Learning our history and having an informed conversation about it, your thoughts and the ways in which we have grown as a community and ways that we still have more to do. That would be my charge for you all today. before we wrap up officially, Colin and Lauren, how do we get in touch with you? If we want you to be a part of our support community, if we want to be mentored by you, if we want to get involved with Boys and Young Men of Color or Teen Achievers, if we want to read your book, Colin, if we want to learn how to become a philanthropist, how do we do that?
So for me, it's simple. Just go right on my website, access to my email to reach out to me. Access to my LinkedIn is on my website. Also access to my book. So www.colinmays.com. That's www.collinmays.com. And I'm very responsive. I'll get back to you right away. Would love to connect with everybody that's a part of this network.
Yeah. For me, you can look, first I would say look up the YMCA at large on the internet. You can research our Achievers program at www.ymcadetroit.org. Again, that's www.ymcadetroit.org. Our Achievers program, we talked briefly about that, but I just want to share just briefly. It's a college and career prep program with an emphasis on high school completion. And even post high school up to 2 years, we have Achievers 2.0 program that youth can continuously get resources through networking, mentorship, even post-graduation, because sometimes the end goal was graduating high school, but our youth need continuous supportive services. So we have an extension program through our Achievers 2.0 program. We have our male mentoring through Boys and Young Men of Color that we mentioned. We have SAT prep as well. We have a YUSA Youth and Government program that we offer as well. We have a workforce development program. Thank you to Detroit Employment Solutions Corporation to make sure that you have equitable resources around workforce development as well. So you can see all those different initiatives and the things that we offer online, or you can email me directly at Laron, LARON .Evans, EVANS at ymcadetroit.org as well, if you want more information.
Thank you both for your time today and for sharing your wealth of knowledge with us. We hope to stay in communication and continue this conversation. That is not an ask, that's a promise that we will deliver on and keeping the conversation going. There's a genius artist and organizer here in Detroit that created this campaign where he said, protect her, love her. And I'm going to give that back to you all, where we are going to protect him and love him and continue to advocate for the health of Black men, whether at the YMCA of Metropolitan Detroit and across the YMCA movement. So thank you again, and we hope that you go out today, you emancipate, commemorate, and educate someone as we celebrate Juneteenth. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you again, Ariel.
Thank you. Thank you so much.